Gwen, you have a lot of experience with antidepressant drugs, antipsychotic drugs. Why are those so dangerous, and what are some of the things that you saw with those?
This would get into a very lengthy interview, but what I'd like to really just focus upon would be that psychiatric drugs are very highly profitable to the industry. And we're talking about thousands of percentages of increase on what it costs the manufacturer to make a drug and then what they market it for. So it's a very lucrative area. And just to let you know, antipsychotics have been the #1 drug category in sales for the past 3 years running at the tune of over $14.6 billion each year. So you need to understand that with that in mind, they're trying to expand their psychiatric market in any way that they can. It's kind of like you cast the net for more fish, you know. And so that's the reason why they have expanded this market into our children. And now they are marketing antipsychotics to our children, and they're using them for behavioral disorders like ADHD or ADD and oppositional defiance disorder, and pediatric bipolar disorder, which, by the way, didn't even exist historically until we started drugging our children with Ritalin and stimulants in the 70s and 80s. And then all of a sudden, wow, we have this whole new population of pediatrics with bipolar disorder, which what that is in fact a reaction to the stimulant drugs. So and antidepressants are also stimulants. Antipsychotics can have a stimulant effect. They can also have a sedative effect. They more than likely will have sedative effects. But it just depends on the individual's biochemical makeup on how you react to any of these drugs. One of my concerns, having been a pharmaceutical rep, is knowing that children are predisposed to have adverse events on pharmacologicals. They're 3 times as likely as adults to have an adverse event because they have developing kidneys, they have developing livers, developing brains, and therefore they may not be able to metabolize drugs properly. They may be rapid metabolizers and actually have withdrawal symptoms between doses of their drug, or they may just not respond properly to the drug. It just depends on the individual biochemical makeup of the child on what kind of a response they will have to the drugs. And a lot of times people say, well, why would you give a stimulant drug to someone who is overstimulated to begin with? Well, that's a good question, because what the drugs do is they actually shut down neurotransmitter pathways in the brain that are stimulating. So initially they will have that effect of calming the child. But the brain's an extremely intelligent organ, and it recognizes these drugs as toxins. So it will, in a child, eventually overcome the toxicity of the drug, and that's why they stop working. So the brain actually, if it's healthy enough, will counteract the drug. And then
you have to give more.
That's the reason a lot of children get an increased dose, or they get an add-on therapy. That's one of the other ploys in the pharmaceutical industry that really upsets me, is that the agenda is to get people on as many pharmaceuticals as they possibly can. So if one doesn't work, you're not encouraged to stop taking that drug. You're always told, well, this works better in combination with that drug. For example, now you'll see the treatment-resistant depression that they're talking about with the new atypical antipsychotics. That's another area. Now everybody, not everybody, but a large number of people are becoming aware that antidepressants are dangerous, that antidepressants don't work, that there's some huge controversy out there about them. So now they've got to move that market into an unsuspecting group of people. And so that market is going to be moved into the antipsychotics, where people don't know as much about the antipsychotics, and they call them atypical, and they talk about depression on the ads on television, and then they're not talking about psychosis or schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, which is what historically these drugs were used for. They're talking about milder diagnoses now that children, adults, elderly are taking major antipsychotic drugs for. And these are brain-damaging therapeutics. I sold antipsychotics. I would never take one personally.